Thinking of dropping 100 grand on a new luxury car? Hold that thought. 20 years ago, some beasts were built so tough the only way to destroy them was to crash them yourself. Buckle up. Here are 7 old luxury legends that age slower than time itself. Number 7. Acura RL. Did you know Acura once built a luxury sedan so over-engineered it felt like an experiment to see who'd give up first, the car or the owner? Yeah, that was the first-generation Acura RL. When it launched in 1996, Acura was in a weird mood. They killed off the legend, one of the coolest names ever, and replaced it with 2 random letters. RL. People were confused. RL? What does that even mean? Acura said it stood for refined luxury, but it might as well have meant really lasts, because this thing was built like it expected you to hand it down to your great-grandchildren. So what made this car literally built to last forever? Let's start under the hood. The 3.5-liter V6 engine, the C35A, was part of Honda's legendary V6 family that powered everything from the Legend to the NSX supercar. This wasn't some bean counter's budget engine. Honda engineered it with forged internals, a reinforced block, and tolerances so tight you'd think they were building watches, not cars. It wasn't chasing big power numbers, 210 horsepower, 224 pound-feet of torque, but that was the point. Honda deliberately undertuned it, running it well below its stress limits. The result? Owners routinely report these engines sailing past 300,000 miles with nothing more than oil changes. Some have crossed 400,000 miles and are still running on the original engine and transmission. And because this was Acura, Honda's luxury division, everything was built with surgical precision. The transmission was a 4-speed automatic that shifted so smoothly it almost felt arrogant about it. The chassis was absurdly rigid. Honda engineers gave it double wishbone suspension all around, a layout usually reserved for sports cars. It was so well balanced that even decades later, these cars still drive tight and composed. No rattles, no squeaks, just that quiet, solid feeling that says, "I've seen things, and I'm still fine." Then there's the suspension setup, which is frankly overkill in the best way possible. Honda gave the RL double wishbone suspension at all 4 corners, the same setup you'd find on sports cars. And oh yeah, race cars. Honda said, "What if we built this thing like it's going to compete at Le Mans, but with leather seats?" Double wishbone suspension doesn't just handle better, it distributes stress more evenly, which means it wears out slower. And though the interior might feel outdated now, it boasted an impeccable build quality and use of high-end materials. Every panel fit. Every stitch, every surface was engineered to perfection, so much so that it still feels as solid and composed as the day it left the factory. Also, there was every reason to stop and admire how all the controls were logically placed and easy to use, something you won't find in luxury cars these days. Number 6. Jaguar XJ Super V8 X350. When was the last time you saw a Jaguar that didn't leak uncontrollably like a newborn baby? Well, we're talking about the XJ Super V8, a car so posh, so powerful, and so unapologetically British that it could have been knighted on the spot. Now, this wasn't your grandpa's lazy Jag that spent more time in the shop than on the road. Nope. The XJ Super V8 was the ultimate version of the X350 generation, which already shocked people back in 2004 because it was the first mass-produced saloon model to feature full bonded and riveted all-aluminum monocoque chassis and body. That meant it was about 800 pounds lighter than its German rivals like Mercedes-Benz S-Class S, 500L, and BMW 7 Series. And then they went all in. They grabbed the supercharged 4.2-liter V8 from the XJR, 400 horsepower, 408 pound-feet of torque, and shoved it into their longest, plushest, most luxurious body. That's like strapping a jet engine to a leather sofa. It was smooth, vicious, and completely effortless. 0 to 60 in about 5 seconds. And it did it with that signature Jaguar growl that sounded less like vroom and more like an aristocrat clearing his throat before chaos. But it wasn't just fast, it was properly refined. Inside, it was like sitting in a cigar lounge that learned how to sprint. Real wood trim, hand-stitched leather, analog gauges, and more chrome than a Vegas casino. The seats, softer than your grandmother's forgiveness. The rear legroom, enough to host a small garden party. This wasn't a sports sedan. This was a rolling embassy. Here's the shocker though. The XJ Super V8 was actually reliable. Yeah, you heard that right. The aluminum body didn't rust, the electronics didn't constantly have nervous breakdowns, and the drivetrain was rock solid. The ZF's 6-speed automatic shifted like melted butter on glass, and the AJ-V8 engine could easily cross 200,000 miles with basic maintenance, something no one believed a Jaguar could do before. Back in 2006, this thing cost $95,000, which was Mercedes S-Class and BMW 7 Series money. But unlike those cars, the Super V8 didn't need to shout about it. It just glided past traffic with quiet superiority. Number 5. Volvo 960. They say Volvos were built like tanks, but the 960 wasn't a tank. It was the reason tanks started feeling insecure. You could hit a brick wall in this thing, and the wall would need therapy. When the Volvo 960 arrived in 1990, it had one job: make the old 760 look like less of a rolling brick. So Volvo thought, let's keep the indestructibility, but add leather seats, airbags, and a dash of sophistication. And in doing so, it became the last of Volvo's rear-wheel drive sedans. What's really impressive is how the 960 didn't care about being fast or flashy. It cared about lasting. The chassis? Strong enough to lift a small house. The suspension? Practically laughed at potholes. And the doors? Oh, the doors. They closed with that heavy, satisfying clunk that basically says, I've survived 3 owners, 2 divorces, a moose. Under the hood, Volvo gave buyers a choice between reliability and slightly more reliability. Early cars came with the smooth B280 V6, a holdover from the 760, but the real gem arrived soon after, the B6304 inline 6. A silky 3.0-liter straight 6 that idled like a Swiss watch and ran forever if you remembered to feed it oil occasionally. It was one of Volvo's first all-aluminum engines, and it showed off their knack for building something both refined and indestructible. Even the later 2.5-liter version had that same will outlive you energy. Oh, and once you step inside, it's pure Swedish comfort therapy. The 960's cabin had soft leather everywhere, real walnut wood trim, and seats so supportive you'd swear Volvo hired orthopedic surgeons to design them. Most had electric adjustments, heating, and that classic Volvo ergonomic logic. Everything exactly where your hand expected it to be. And of course, safety was the big headline. Volvo packed the 960 with features that were futuristic for the early 90s. Dual airbags, ABS, the side impact protection system, SIPS, and even integrated child booster seats. Because Swedes don't half-step safety. In short, the 960 wasn't trying to be luxurious, it just was. Number 4. Lexus LS430. Did you know that the 3rd-generation Lexus LS430 is considered one of the best affordable luxury sedans ever made? Honestly, once you understand the reasons behind it, it makes perfect sense. Launched for the 2001 model year, the LS430 was Lexus saying, "Step aside, Germany. We'll show you how luxury should age." This was the 3rd-generation LS, the point where Lexus stopped competing and started experimenting. The LS400 had already scared the Germans by being smoother, quieter, and cheaper. So Lexus said, let's see how close we can get to perfection before it becomes a crime. The answer? The LS430, redesigned from scratch and often remembered as the moment Lexus truly peaked. The 430 name stood for its new 4.3-liter V8. The 3UZFE, an engine that might as well have been forged from the concept of reliability itself. This engine wasn't just reliable, it was biblical. You could pour sand into the oil filler, drive across the states for years, and it still won't roll its eyes. Owners report these things hitting 300,000, 400,000 miles. Not limping, not struggling, just calmly existing. It made around 290 horsepower, delivered through a 5-speed automatic that shifted so smoothly you could barely tell it was working. Later models even got a 6-speed, and the luxury? Ridiculous. You didn't sit in an LS430, you descended into it. The seats were so comfortable you'd question your couch at home. Every surface was wrapped in either leather, wood, or smug satisfaction. And because Lexus was in their show-off quietly phase, you got gadgets nobody had yet. Air suspension that made potholes feel theoretical, soft close doors, laser-guided adaptive cruise control, passenger-sensing, solar-detecting, multi-zone automatic climate control with automatically oscillating center dashboard HVAC vents, and yes, an actual fridge if you wanted to get a bit more fancy. You'd think luxury means constant breakdowns, right? But not this time. The LS430 wasn't the kind of luxury car that had you visiting the dealer every week or setting up a separate savings account just for repairs. It was a machine crafted with the same obsessive perfectionism as a samurai's blade. Every nut, every switch, every piece of trim fit together with microscopic precision. Best of all, the LS430 kept getting better throughout its life till the 2006 model year. The 2004 facelift gave it a sharper look, radar cruise control, knee airbags, and a new 6-speed automatic that shifted smoother than most of today's 8 speeds. Before we reveal the final 3, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts on the best old luxury car we've mentioned so far. Number 3. BMW 5 Series E39. Imagine creating such a tank-like luxury car that the automaker had to say, yeah, we might not top this one. Well, we're talking about the BMW 5 Series E39, a car so good many believe it was the peak BMW. Road and Track called it one of the best luxury sports sedans of all time. What Car said it was one of the best cars they've ever tested. Hagerty basically tells buyers, doesn't matter which one you get, you're winning. So how did BMW pull this off? Imagine late 90s BMW. The engineers were at the peak of their arrogance and brilliance. They'd just nailed the E36 and E34, and someone in Munich probably stood up one day and said, all right, let's make a luxury car that will make BMW legendary, as if we already aren't. It was the kind of challenge only BMW in its golden era would take seriously. Half madness, half genius, and all precision. And so, they got to work on this brick of a machine with one secret weapon. Aluminum, lots of it. The front subframe, control arms, thrust arms, all made of lightweight alloy to reduce unsprung mass. That's engineer speak for the wheels can dance over bumps instead of punching the driver in the spine. Even on a 25-year-old suspension, the E39 still feels tighter than most new cars today. The chassis itself was one of the first to be designed with full computer modeling, so rigid it made rival engineers wonder if BMW had acquired alien technology. Then there were the engine. The straight 6 versions, 525i, 528i, 530i, ran the legendary M52 and M54 engines, so smooth you could lose track of whether the car was even running. Meanwhile, the 540i came with a 4.4-liter V8 that turned your morning commute into a religious experience. But if you wanted true madness, there was the M5, a 400 horsepower, naturally aspirated lunatic of an engine that revved to 7,000 RPM and made sounds that could convince angels to start drag racing. Inside, it was exactly what luxury should be. Subtle, not showy, real wood trim, soft leather, red backlighting that made night drives feel cinematic. Everything you touched had purpose. You didn't sit in an E39, you wore it. And the best part? These things just refuse to die. Take care of it, and it'll outlive your next 2 daily drivers. There are E39 M5s out there still running strong past 400,000 miles, with original engines that have only seen regular maintenance. Number 2. Mercedes-Benz W124 E-Class. If cars had life insurance, the W124 would have bankrupted every company. This thing was engineered so well, it feels like Mercedes accidentally made a car that will outlive everyone. By the time it officially debuted in 1984, after 8 long years into production, it looked elegant, restrained, and completely unflashy, which was precisely the point. Italian designer Bruno Sacco gave it a boxy but soft stance that looked muscular without trying too hard. But under the skin, pure madness. Mercedes dumped in high-strength steel, lighter materials, and crumple zones, while pioneering a rear multi-link suspension that made every other car feel like it was riding on shopping cart wheels. Oh, and aerodynamics were ahead of their time too. Some versions hit a drag coefficient of 0.29, better than most modern sedans, and almost on par with a Porsche 992. Translation: higher top speeds, better fuel economy, and a ride so smooth it could make clouds jealous. In addition, it was the first Mercedes to offer 4 MATIC all-wheel drive, meaning it could handle slippery roads with ease long before traction control became a buzzword. Inside, Mercedes approached luxury like it was a life-or-death mission. Seats that still feel like butter, wood trim that hasn't warped in decades, and buttons that click with the satisfying precision of a Swiss watch. Safety was never an afterthought. Airbags, ABS, and side impact protection systems made the W124 the automotive equivalent of a tank in a tailored suit. But the real magic was under the hood. The W124 offered a spectrum of engines, from tiny 4-cylinders to buttery inline 6s, and of course, the diesels. The OM603 and OM606 engines became the stuff of legend, unstoppable, invincible, and apparently capable of surviving anything short of dynamite. So it isn't even breaking news when you hear model years of W124 E-Class crossing 500,000 miles with just basic maintenance. But the one enthusiasts still dream about is the E500. The Porsche-built monster with flared fenders and a 5.0-liter V8 that turned the W124 from a sensible executive sedan into a German sledgehammer. And the car itself? Indestructible. There's a famous clip where a monster truck crushes a W124 wagon flat. You'd think that's game over. Nope, it fires right up, electronics intact, and drives off like nothing happened. Modern cars. They would have filed for early retirement at the sight of that monster truck. Number 1. Lexus LS400. So you thought we could make a video on old luxury cars that were built to last and not include the Lexus LS400? Please. We don't have a death wish, folks. Mentioning indestructible luxury without this car is like talking about rock and roll and forgetting the Beatles. Picture this. It's the late 1980s. Everyone's hair has its own zip code. The Berlin Wall is crumbling, and Mercedes-Benz ruled the luxury world, sipping champagne on its leather throne, laughing in German. Then, out of nowhere, Toyota, yes, Toyota, the brand famous for bulletproof Corollas, steps in and says, "Hey, we're making a luxury car that's smoother, quieter, and more reliable than anything you've ever built." Everyone laughed. Then the LS400 launched in 1989, and nobody laughed again. Rumor has it, Toyota spent nearly $1 billion developing the LS400, a number so insane, accountants went bald pulling their hair in frustration. Toyota started from scratch. New brand, new platform, new engine, new everything. Over 4,000 engineers, 450 prototypes, and 8 years of work later, the result was a car that basically told the Germans, "Sit down, we got this." Back then, the LS400 came armed with a 4.0-liter V8 that made 250 horsepower, not the kind that gets you arrested, but the kind that makes you late for nothing. It was absurdly smooth, almost suspiciously so, like Lexus had bribed physics to behave differently. Thanks to a DOHC 32-valve setup and Toyota's typically obsessive engineering, this engine could probably survive being run on optimism alone. Step inside the LS400, and it's immediately clear this wasn't just a luxury car. It was a quiet middle finger to the Europeans. Lexus didn't just want to make something comfortable, they wanted to make something flawless. Craftsmanship wasn't a feature here, it was a full-blown religion. Toyota knew they couldn't afford to screw up their first luxury car, so they basically went insane with quality control. Every car went through an inspection process that would make NASA nervous. The panel gaps were so perfect they could have been measured in pride instead of millimeters. The seats? Stitched so precisely you'd think they were sewn by monks trained in patience and leathercraft. Nothing squeaked, nothing flexed. It was as if the entire car had been built by people who personally feared imperfection. And the best part? It destroyed the German. Quietly, politely, and completely. The LS400 was half the price of an S-Class, twice as reliable, and smoother than a politician dodging a question. And fast forward 30 years, and these things still refuse to die. You'll find LS400s with 500,000 miles that still idle smoother than a brand new BMW. The only thing that wears out on them is their owners. We hope you enjoyed this video. Here's another one you'll love. As always, thanks for watching.